Gil Capps from the Golf Channel was there and will bring us some more insight on this and the U.S. Open, which has a back-to-back national champion. Gil, welcome back. How are you?
Guys, how are you? As I told Josh, before I came on, I don't really know what you guys need to talk about today. It was just another uneventful Saturday, Sunday in the world of golf. So, we'll just keep this short and sweet, and you can move on to more important things.
Well, Saturday is an interesting day because the course was outrageously difficult, it seemed like. Was that the feeling from a lot of the golfers after Saturday's round, that this is just outrageous?
Yes, for the most part. Look, I don't know where to start with this, but you can go off on about 20 different tangents. I think sometimes we get, or people outside the golf world get a little too caught up in what's fair and what's not fair. I don't think golf was ever meant to be a fair sport, right? It's not like basketball or football where everything is kind of, you have your dimensions and you have your fields and everything is pretty much, the same throughout. But golf and course conditions and course setups vary week to week, day to day, hour to hour. So it's not meant to be fair in a sense from one wave of players in the morning to the afternoon. I think where it kind of crossed the line in the afternoon on Saturday was when you start to get that trickle effect of balls on the green, not stopping, where a good shot. Look, it doesn't have to be. That's not the game. It does have to be rewarded with, close shots all the time. But when you saw good shots played and then not stopping where you think they should stop and keep rolling and going off greens, that's where it comes a little more sketchy. And I think the players had a right to complain, and the players had a right to complain, especially after the USGA, had made such a big deal earlier in the week about what they had learned from the final round in 2004, when the course really did get out of hand. Course average that day almost 9 over par 14 years ago, and they said they learned their lessons, and with technology and all the things they were doing now, that would never happen. So to see that all of a sudden happen Saturday afternoon, you really gave them a black eye, and a lot of people began questioning, the USGA leadership, USGA's position in the game, and there's a lot of things beyond just what you see on the TV on the weekend of a U.S. Open, going on with the USGA and other issues in the game, such as the big thing right now being equipment and the distance the ball goes and how the game is played. Because it's played a little differently now than it used to be played, with the way these guys hit the ball. Prime example, Brooks Koepka. So it was not a great weekend for the USGA, and that'll be a story which will continue to evolve.
Right. Now, Phil Mickelson obviously making a lot of waves. Some people think he should have, disqualified himself, or that the USGA should have disqualified him. I saw a lot of people saying, that they basically, chickened out a little bit by not doing this. What was the take up there? I mean, and do we legitimately believe that Phil did this out of strategy, or was it more frustration with the course?
Well, right. That's the big question. The last one you just asked there, Mike.
Because he said he said he knew what he was doing, that he's thought about doing it in the past and just never did it. But this time, I knew what I was doing. It's a 2-stroke penalty, and I knew that. Like, it was almost like he said, "Look, this is strategy that I was just putting into my round."
I think that is what has upset people more than if he just would have come out and said, "You know what? I was playing awful. The course was, really, really hard, and I was frustrated, and I didn't feel like trying to hit that chip pitch shot, on the other side of that bunker and maybe make a 12 or 13 or 14." If he would have said that, I think he would have gotten a little more sympathy than the story he came up with. I'm not really sure if that was actually strategy he thought of at that time, or it was an excuse that he came up with over the next 5 holes in determining what he was going to say to the media. Phil thinks outside the box on a lot of that stuff. So I'm not quite sure. I will give the USGA a little bit of credit here, but in my opinion, they've been consistent with this rule in the past. Kurt Triplett did this at a U.S. Open. John Daly famously did this at a U.S. Open back at Pinehurst when he was shooting a million back in 1999, and did not disqualify either one of those guys. Gave him the 2-shot penalty, and that was it. But with Phil, there's a lot of gray area just from his answer, Mike. You're right, and look, we're in our sports. I think for better or worse, I think it's just fact. Most of us, we're pretty forgiving of people with transgressions outside the ballpark, with some transgressions, not all transgressions, I should say, right? If they're a good guy, bad guy, as long as they're within those lines and performing to the best of their abilities within the letter of the law, we're pretty good with that. But with that said, once you cross the line and people think, you know what, maybe he's not, playing by the rules or thinking by the rules like it should be, right? Maybe he's cheating. And that cheater tag is hard to, I'm not saying Phil cheated, but it gives the indication that he's thinking of playing in a way that's not sportsmanlike and not within the spirit of the games. And there are a lot of people who think that in essence, what happened really puts a black eye on his career. I don't know if I'd go that far because, a lot of this stuff will be forgotten in 6 months, a year time. But I think Phil at some point may have something extra to say about this, and once he thinks a little longer and hard about what he did, maybe we'll get a different answer from him.
Well, Andy North suggested that if this was the Masters, he never would have done this.
You know what? That's the other question people have. Was this done despite the USGA and the course setup and the conditions? I'm not sure. It could have been, but I just think the frustration got the best of him that afternoon, and that's what happened.
Obviously there's more attention because of the magnitude of this. It's one of the majors, so there's a lot of attention. Good or bad, this is probably a good thing. I said golf should maybe be giving him a high five right now. People are talking about the sport, and people are watching the highlights of this. But overreaction or fair reaction to what has happened with this whole situation?
As far as the Mickelson situation?
Yes.
I would say overreaction. Yeah, I would. I think it got to a point where, we were all so shocked, that he did it, and that somebody of Phil's caliber did it. Once again, I think if he would have come out and said, "Look, my emotions got the best of me. I was frustrated. I shouldn't have done it, but I could have been there for forever. If I felt I could have been there forever if I wouldn't have hit that ball the way I did." I think, Mickelson has made it worse by what he said after the fact, and that's why he keeps getting such play and getting a lot of play too, right? Because of where it was. It was at the U.S. Open and in the New York market.
We're talking with Gil Capps from the Golf Channel here. Brooks Koepka wins back-to-back. What does this do for him and his career? I mean, I don't know that he's that tip-of-your-tongue star that maybe the game still yearns for. I think Woods is still the guy at the top of that list, and there's a lot of other bigger names than Brooks. But what does winning back-to-back do for him?
That's another big question, Mike. What does it? Because this is a kid who's got tons and tons of talent, and he is the prototypical modern golfer. You look at him; he works out. He's got he's got arms on him where you could probably think he was a baseball player or a football tight end before you guess he's a golfer. Hits the ball a mile. Good iron game. Good touch around the greens. Not a lot seems to faze him on the golf course. Has a very good time off the golf course. Yeah. But he's had injury issues, right? He had the wrist injury earlier this year that kept him out, more than 3 months. And you see that talent, and you look, wow, back-to-back U.S. Open wins. but he only has one other win other than that. Won at Phoenix a couple of years ago. So definitely not in that Dustin Johnson echelon yet. His good buddy, who was looking to really cement his career this past weekend, didn't quite do it. So we'll see. We'll see what this does to maybe spur him on and give him even more confidence he can be an elite player. But with these guys, as we've seen over the years, it's really hard to tell what's inside them and what makes them tick and how much fire burns inside. And when we see Dustin Johnson, there's a lot more fire in there that burns than people thought. We'll see with Brooks Koepka if he can stay healthy and he can kind of develop that fire to be, consistently one of the best players in the world and go on to win a bunch more.
Yeah, we'll see. And obviously that Mickelson story really kind of overtook the weekend because there were so many high scores. The course was such a topic of conversation. Your winner, Brooks Koepka, with 1 over par. He beats Fleetwood, who had just an amazing day yesterday to challenge Koepka for first in the U.S. Open. He finished +2. And then Justin Johnson, who the last time we spoke, Gil, he was 4 under par, really looked like he was lapping the field, and that Saturday late afternoon just swallowed him up, and he finishes in 3rd. But overall, now, interestingly enough, like if Mickelson was in the running for, 1st, 2nd, 3rd place, if he was up there and did something like this, would there be even more of conversation about it, that he strategically did, quote unquote, strategically did something to try to preserve his score, because of where he was on the leaderboard?
Now that goes back to your question, overblown or underblown. And now, if that would have happened in that instance, we're probably not talking about it enough, because then if he actually did do that, strategy-wise, to save shots, that would really would have tainted
right
wherever he finished in his legacy. But once again, that's the question. What a lot of people in golf think is that he wasn't thinking about that at that time. He was just it was the spur of the moment and frustrations of the day. And to go back to Dustin Johnson, I still think that we talk about Brooks Koepka and we talk about all these other guys, but what Dustin Johnson is showing and the way he's playing golf, I think it makes him one of the main favorites here going forward next month at the Open at Carnoustie and the PGA Championship. He is that Saturday afternoon round, which I think he actually played pretty well. I think it took him a little bit out of his rhythm because he didn't putt quite as well. Obviously, it's hard to putt when you feel like you're putting on glass, and hole locations are in spots where there's more slip than there should be. But don't discount Dustin Johnson just because he wasn't able to finish this off on the weekend.
The 147th Open at Carnoustie is coming up the 15th through the 22nd of July. Gil Capps will be there, and of course we'll have him here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Gil, thanks so much.
Guys, enjoy your summer. Talk to you soon.